The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook. Use promo code RTRS. Download their top-rated app. And brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get yours right now at bigbarker.com/Ricky. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. And Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. Happy Valentine's Day. Valentine's edition of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. However, 2 straight losses on the West trip to Portland and Phoenix. Talk about that, whether it's the bench, whether it's the three-point shooting, maybe it's Doc Rivers, maybe it's something else. Will Mike finally say that Devin Booker is good? You never know. And then we will dip into the mailbag, where we have a very important question about where you stand relative to the toilet when you pee, and a lot of other basketball questions that are a little more pertinent to the pod. 2 things before we get going. Subscribe on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button. It's right down there. Leave a comment. We feature 1 comment every pod if you're watching this on YouTube. And a very special brand new Carl Landry Record Club pod out on Tuesday. Dave Hartley from War on Drugs, who was once on the Ricky, came on the Carl Landry Record Club, and we talked about 3 albums. He brought an album, Simon and Garfunkel. We also talk about a Harry Nilsson record and Alkaline Trio, and we talk about live drugs as well. It's a fun episode. The first time we've had a guest on actually do the record club, so that'll be on Tuesday. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who is more tired when we record the pod than he is for West Coast games. That is Mike Levin.
That's right. Devin Booker's good. He just he does one thing really well, and that's about it.
Most important thing.
Yeah, probably, but it wasn't good enough to get him in the playoffs at any point in his career. I just value more other stuff. But he's definitely good. He kills us. He fucking absolutely roasts us.
I think
37 a game against us.
Yeah, he is 37.2. I think after that game. Yeah, this drug has averaged down this game. I think the thing about him though is sometimes, and you would only know this from watching. I think there are players who are able to score, and it looks disruptive to the rest of the game. It sort of looks out of control, like they're in their own little world. I don't feel that way about Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker, a lot of those players, if you were to put a player as ball dominant as Chris Paul on the same team, they would become a lot less impressive. And I think it says something about Booker as a player that they're able to put Chris Paul on the team and he's still able to be as impressive as he is, I think. And I think he's like a little craftier than people give him credit for. I just think he's really smart about where to go. I don't know. He scored from a really nice little mid-range shot, good three-point shooter. I'm always impressed by him when I watch him. Yeah.
I mean, he's certainly good in a way that we don't have.
Yeah.
Kind of never had.
Yeah.
But,
so... Let's start with him, because there was a lot of consternation, I think, and discussion about the decision to sort of move Danny Green to being the primary defender on him in the second quarter. I thought watching it that was a little overstated. It seemed to me that I didn't see too much difference. Obviously, Ben Simmons is a better defender than Danny Green is, but Devin Booker seemed like he got to his spots on Ben Simmons too. I didn't think that was as big a deal as everyone else did. Did you?
I mean, the past 2 games, Suns and Blazers, the other team just started getting really hot. They were just hitting everything. And the Blazers started off hitting like 7 straight threes or something like that.
Yeah.
Like something in the first quarter, just unbelievable. And Phoenix just hit every shot in the mid range. They shot over 60%. I think the Sixers probably deserved to lose those games, but still could have won them. As far as Danny goes, like I really like Danny as a defender. He's just and when he has like center help or is trying to keep them in like a middle distance range, he's good, but he's just so easily blown by. He just does not have the lateral quickness that he used to. And it just feels like Danny's sort of like hunched over, like following a way faster guard a lot. I think that they should reconsider that. Because on the other hand, he has really nice hands. He'll dig down and steal the ball just because he's smart and knows where the ball is, and he'll deflect and he'll get a couple blocks as a wing. But yeah, just as far as moving his feet goes, he's just not capable of doing it anymore. So I think that Danny is the like, let's see if we can get by with these 8 minutes something, and so that we can save Simmons for later and maybe roll out Matisse as a change of pace, as a different look kind of thing. And I get it. I get why you'd want to be like, hey, we have different looks we can throw at these people. But yeah, Danny. I don't know that Danny's on that list anymore. I think he might just be. He might just be too old.
Well, the other thing that is easy to forget is that Chris Paul is on the court too, so somebody has to guard him too. So if you move Danny off of Booker, then your guess is that he's probably on Chris Paul, who's also going to roast him. And it also seems too that the way that the NBA works now is that even when Booker, and this was more the second half than the first, but even when Booker had Simmons on him, all he needs is one screen to just sort of neutralize that, and I'll either get a switch or get the half inch he needs. I don't think in any perimeter battle, I will take the great perimeter offensive player over the defensive player.
Of course.
So I don't know that there's much that you can go. Though I do agree. I don't think that putting Danny Green on Devin Booker is like going to make a Devin Booker stopper at any point.
Yeah, and in my mind, that's not the that's not an assessment that offense is more important than defense or whatever it is. I just think offense is generally more effective than defense. It's just the players in the NBA are now so good at scoring and just getting their shot off the dribble, even the high level creators, that it kind of just like, hey, you make it hard for them and then they hit shots. Like, all you can do is make it hard. And I think that they did on Dame a lot. And I think that especially in the second half, they didn't quite make it as hard as they could on some of the Suns guys. It started to get a little easy for them.
Yeah.
But that was a frustrating game. That was one of the Blazers game is just like, look, if Melo's going to do that, God bless him. You tip your cap. Dame went off early. Gary Trent was hitting step backs, all that stuff. Cantor was a little frustrating in that Embiid had to, play up on Dame, and then it was kind of like see if the guys can rotate around Cantor. And I honestly thought the defense did a pretty good job of rotating, but Cantor's just so big and good at offensive rebounding that's he just like gets Embiid with those. But in the Phoenix game, it did feel like they look slow. They're playing a little stupid. They're not moving the ball as well. And they weren't, getting a hand up or getting the loose balls or that kind of thing. It just felt there's a style of Sixers play because they don't have that like easy scorer on the perimeter. Although Embiid's mid-range face-ups is a layup. Because they don't have that, when they look a step slow or they're a step late, like a beat late on not making the right pass, or there's just like we don't have the right personnel in because we're counting on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 bench guys that, especially without Shake, are flawed, it becomes like, oh, this team is not quite there. And so they need to be playing so well for this team to be playing well. And I think that is the argument to be made for it's time for Darryl to improve the bench.
Okay, so two things. I wanted to go back to the Simmons thing real quick, is that most times when you see players who are great defenders but also are necessary on offense, you don't always just see them thrown on the best other guy. Like sure. you wait for it, you know? So that's the thing about Simmons, is that he's not just defense only. So you can't, unless you just turn him into fucking Tony Allen or something, like you can't just unleash him. And that's also the difference between sort of like big man defense versus perimeter defense, is that one is there all the time and one really can't be unless it's the only thing that they're doing. But I guess, so the question I wanted to ask you about the bench and also about the ability to score is, these are teams like simply the fact that Portland has Melo and has CJ McCollum and who didn't even play, and has Lillard, who are three players capable of sort of going off on their own without any help from anybody else. And the Suns have three or two, Booker, Chris Paul. I mean, Etuan Moore looked unstoppable. As he can score on his own.
Yeah, the floater over Embiid off the backboard was just a prayer that actively made me mad in a way that I haven't been this season, and I didn't like that feeling. No.
So it comes back to two things. It comes back to, first of all, Doc Rivers' decision to sort of have Embiid and Simmons play their minutes all together and not really have much staggering might make the bench look worse than it is, because it's all bench units. And if they were not flawed, they would not be all bench units, right? So that's the first question I would have.
Well, especially without Shake, and especially with Mike Scott coming back his first game and basically looking like he hadn't played before.
Right. And then, the first question I would ask is, and also the Simmons and bench units have not been particularly good this year anyway, and no. A lot of that has to do with the makeup of the bench, especially with Thibault, especially with Dwight Howard. But all that said, is it a bench issue? Is it a Doc issue? Or is it the larger issue that they do not have or is it all of them, that they do not have a second offensive player on the team who is capable of really carrying them for a game?
Well, I do think that Shake is that. I think he's been struggling a little bit lately, but I think he's certainly the best offensive creator on the team, on the bench at least. I think on a given night, Tobias or Ben could be better at that. I think Seth can give you a boost in there, but aside from Embiid, like, it's going to be a combination of those guys. And so without Shake and with Maxey looking pretty just, rookie-ish, that's a big loss to not have Shake out there. And so when you go down one guy and your bench is so eesh, you want to be able to improve some of that. And so I think I'm very frustrated with Dwight. I'm ready to move on from that. I think he is.
It was a great era.
It was a great era for about a month and a half, and now we're in the downturn. Maybe it bounces back. Maybe this is just the doldrums, but oh man, he shouldn't be allowed to dribble. He shouldn't, he's fouling guys
to watch
aimlessly. Has never. I mean, for a guy that he hasn't been getting as many offensive rebounds as he has been before, but just absolutely no touch inside, nothing whatsoever. He gets that rebound. He's always so ready to go right back up with it and try a little 3 foot off the glass that he misses by 3 additional feet. It is impressive, and we just need because Embiid's shooting, and he shoots well, and he's shooting around 40% for the season, and he's sometimes more willing to hoist than otherwise. The past 2 games he shot 2 threes, but the Sixers right now just are not shooting enough threes. And especially compared to their opponent. They're shooting, I think it's like 10 games or something that they've shot fewer threes than their opponent.
14.
That's a lot. And it's not like, and it's not like, oh, they shot fewer threes by like 1 or 2. A lot of it is like significant numbers. And Embiid's money from the mid-range, I'm not saying we got to take that away, and we like some post-ups, and that's also part of it is that they get to the line a lot, and so that balances it out. I think all that stuff's important. I'm not saying that this team is all of a sudden going to become that like the only number that matters is how many threes they shoot. That's not the case. But it's got to be closer, and when, Tobias didn't take any threes last night in this Phoenix game, that's untenable. Like that,
it seems impossible.
That can't happen. And right. Mike Scott was on the court for 12 minutes. He didn't take a 3. And Korkmaz hasn't been shooting well lately. And so it's just it can't be all that stuff. And so they need to find a way to get threes off quicker and be willing to take them quicker. Tobias had earlier in the season, and now he is more reluctant. Maybe that means like giving Isaiah Joe run, because Isaiah Joe is certainly a guy who is not unwilling to shoot threes quickly. But I would love I do think staggering Embiid and Simmons in the right situations is valuable. I also think playing them a lot together. I'm not saying I think some should be Tobias and bench, some should be Ben and bench. But I would love a stretch 5. Like I it's tough to keep saying it, but a stretch 5 that doesn't like kill you on defense, that opens the court up for Ben or for Embiid if he's if you play like a PJ Tucker at the 4 sometimes. Like we're just at a place where these Dwight minutes, he's playing now. He's down to like 10 or 12 minutes a game, and Embiid has to play more minutes a game, and it's still like we're still like not getting what you need out of him. And I love Matisse. I really do. I think he saves you points regularly. His, just steals some blocks, and he did have some great D on Damon stuff.
That prayer 3 was the
prayer
nice
3
one.
was, I knew it was going into. I was already pissed off. I was like, this is going in. This fucking shit. It is. I made it. Your Korkmaz long feet observation. I think my equivalent of that is that Matisse's hands are too long for offense. I think they're helpful for deflections on defense.
Not his arms, his hands.
His hands, and I think he's like deflecting his own ball when he's trying to shoot or pass or dribble or finish inside. I think he's actually actively deflecting himself. He can't help it.
Wow.
So that's my take. He did have a nice attacking a closeout off of Phoenix zone and got right to the rim on it. But basically, like, I think Matisse is very valuable, but I think putting him out there with Dwight and Ben only accentuates his weaknesses. And I think they really, really need a guy who is willing to shoot very quickly, very often. And right now the only guy is like Korkmaz, because Seth, it takes a while for him to get it off because he's little. Danny is also slow. Mike Scott is working his way back. Maybe he'll become that guy again. And now Tobias is more unwilling than he had been. It's just like it needs to be. They need to have. I think they just need a little fresh thing. And Shake, when he was on, was shooting it from wherever, and then that's also cooled. So I don't know if that's a Doc thing or if that's just a welcome to Philadelphia. Your shot's broken now. But it needs to be. It needs to change.
For context, the Sixers are 28th in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game. Here's what is most surprising, is that last year the Sixers shot 31.5 threes a game, and this year they shoot 28. That's kind of stunning. Now we had that first run where Horford was shooting them a lot and quickly, and that's certainly not what you want. Now, the other thing is going to be when your number one offensive player is a low post center and your point guard doesn't shoot threes, it's going to be pretty hard to rank super high in threes, especially when, as you mentioned, the other 3 guys are not quick trigger guys. Now, I agree with you that a stretch 5, and we'll get to a possibility in a second, would certainly be helpful. But it does seem like they are Like, they need both. They need another quick, and, you know, the rumor this week was that Redick wants to go to Brooklyn or New York, and I imagine he'll just get bought out and go to one of those teams. That would be my guess, is that he's not coming back here. I think they need both of those things, because I think having the stretch five guy, I guess you definitely can play him with Embiid. Like, if you think of Ilyasova and players like that, even you're talking about PJ Tucker, you definitely can play him with Embiid. But I do think that a quicker trigger guard type is, I mean, obviously we would like lots more of those players, but I think that's probably necessary too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind if you can get an actual upgrade over Maxey for this year, for the rest of the season. I think that's valuable to do. I think Doc doesn't trust Maxey right now. He certainly doesn't trust him to run the offense. There were some comments after the game that he was like, they're just not running the offense. I think there's been some nice moments for Maxey still, like getting all the way to the rim, getting into some contact. He's still not getting those calls, but finishing through contact. He's had a couple. Plenty of people have been like throwing at Dwight's ankles on pick and rolls. He can't bend down anymore. It just became very clear that they miss Shake. He had that little foul line floater that was good, always good to see go in. But yeah, he's a rookie, and I think he's got a big role in this team going forward. But if they can improve that spot this year, I think you absolutely do it. Yeah, I mean, Embiid and Simmons are obviously not like volume 3-point players, but having those guys around them, Seth, Danny, now, you know, previously a more willing Tobias, and all those guys that can shoot, different from last year. I wouldn't look at just 3 points attempted last year and say, oh, they were better at shooting threes last year. I think it's in the context of it. I think those players, the defenses were way more willing to double and not have to hug Seth Curry or Danny Green or whatever on the perimeter, because they didn't feel that Josh Richardson or Al Horford or last year's iteration of Tobias were as much of a threat. And so Embiid or Simmons had to kick it out to like open shooters that were not really shooters. This year, because they fear the three, Embiid has more room to operate. Simmons has more room to operate. And so they don't have to make that pass as much. So I think that there's context there. I think that the shooters are still important, but I would also say that they just got to get more of them off, especially at the expense of like mid-range or turnovers or anything Dwight. Like there's a better shot diet for this team if they are more willing to take good-looking threes more quickly.
Mike, of all of our sponsors, which name says love to you the most?
Ladies love, baby.
Yep, LL Pavorsky, man. I mean, how could we do a podcast on Valentine's Day and not have it feature just the Ricky Doctor of Love, LL Pavorsky? I know when I am in any sort of romantic situation, if you could see the thought bubble above my head, it would be LL in a suit tweeting.
That's right.
That's what comes through my head. Happy Valentine's Day. LL has connected 210 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners with engagement rings. He is the official first sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. Of course, has provided engagement rings for weddings that we have put on at our events, engagement rings for engagements that we've put on at our events, and of course, many, many, many more normal people who do those things with their close family and friends in private. Look, if it's time for you, then LL is the guy. You are not permitted by law to purchase an engagement ring from anybody else but LL Pavorsky. If you're a Rights to Ricky Sanchez listener, it was recently written into law. Also, even if you're already engaged, already married, or if you're not even thinking about it, you need a piece of jewelry, need a couple of diamond studs that she can wear with anything, something like that, LL Pavorsky is your fella. 215-627-2252. Everything is by appointment only. So in-store is by appointment, online is by appointment, on the phone is by appointment. So make that appointment. 215-627-2252. Lee at llpavorsky.com, at llpavorsky on Twitter. The store has been at 707 Walnut for 32 years. Incredible. We thank Lee also for every pod Donations to Coded by Kids and Providence Animal Center are charities. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
2 straight losses isn't so bad because that just means LL.
Oh, good one. Man,
Yeah,
well done. I agree with everything you said. It is, I will say though, it is interesting that last year's team shot 3 more threes a game, and as of right now, shot a higher percentage. Shot 36.2. And everything you say is there's far more gravity to Danny Green and Seth Curry than there is to Josh Richardson and Al Horford. Like, there's no doubt. And that effect you've seen on Embiid. But like, I just don't want those numbers to be as close as they are. You know, like, if we're going to shoot the same percentage as last year, that's fine. Then we should be shooting more threes than last year.
Well, here's the difference. Right now, and these are guys that play primarily with Ben, so they get good, clean looks out of it. Tobias is shooting, it's going down a little bit, but shooting 41.6% from 3. Embiid shooting 40% from 3 on 3 attempts. That's not enough. Seth is shooting 48% from 3. Danny is shooting just under 37%. So that's all good. All 4 of those guys good. And then you get into Shake, who has struggled from 3, is shooting just under 31%. Korkmaz 33%. That's low for him. Mike Scott 25%. Tyrese Maxey 29%. Matisse 27%. And so that's just that is a bench unit of guys that are not making threes, and we need to get some guys that are. Or I mean, it'll change. Like I really believe in Shake and Korkmaz and Mike Scott hitting more threes and stuff, and I think Maxey will do in time. But it's a matter of like, we want that 1 seed. We want to be good, ready for the playoffs. It'd be nice to get a couple more like natural shooters in here that the defense really has to account for.
Before I get to an option for one of them, your guess right now, who's a better NBA basketball team, the Suns or the Sixers?
I think the Sixers for sure. I mean, Chris Paul's very good. I love Chris Paul. He has made that team so much better. Mikal Bridges didn't play well, but he's excellent. Booker's obviously who he is. I think Ayton's a good player, and it shows you how good Embiid is that they basically didn't even try to run anything for him. They were basically. I gotta tell
you, I think Ayton sucks.
He doesn't. He really doesn't. Like, I don't think he's a number 1 option. I don't think he's Karl Towns on offense, but I think he's like a totally fine offensive player that can do a bunch of things, that is growing as a defensive player, and will be like a top, like a 8 to 10 best center in the league, kind of on both ends. And that's fine. Like, I don't think
on both ends. You think he'd be one of the 10 best defensive centers in the NBA?
I think he will be. Yeah.
Oh,
I think he will be. I mean, that's compared to. There's a lot of like mediocre centers out there.
I know, but if you're top 10 in both, it probably makes you the 4th or 5th best center in the NBA.
No, I mean, I think that he's just going to be like solid. I think he's just going to be a solid player. He can shoot. He can pass a little bit. He can move his feet pretty well. He can rebound. Like, and he doesn't. Especially out of a right now, I think this is probably the drawback of him, is that like he's not demonstrative. He's not like demanding the ball. He's not. I think he's a little bit timid still of like what he can and can't do. But I think that's ultimately, I'd rather have that out of a center than a guy that is like, you know, James Wiseman, that's trying to do so much. I know they're opening it up to Wiseman and stuff, but like Ayton is just like, he's going to do his job. Like he is a fine 2-way center. I think he's in the realm of a Miles Turner, probably worse defensively, but maybe a little better offensively. I think he's just going to be like totally fine. But even with Embiid out there, they just basically in the first half he had 2 points. Like they didn't even try to do anything with him. And so that's just more of a comment on how good Joel is. But yeah, I think, and it's cool to see. We should have said it's cool to see Dario succeed and him banging with Embiid and being
he's being Dario.
He's being Dario, but also like he's gotten bigger. I think he's gotten smarter defensively. His hands are better. He had 4 steals.
Watching him run the break was awesome.
Yeah,
watching him quick threes. Cool. Yeah, we could use Dario.
He's the reason they won that game. Like Dario absolutely is the reason they won that game. He's the 3rd leading scorer off the bench, 20 minutes, and held his own against Joel. And there was a couple times when like Joel slapped his ass a couple times. And I love that Dario is just not like Joel is a serious guy in the game at this point in his career, but like Dario is not joking around during a game, and especially if you do anything like to him, he's very upset about it. He's not
watching
really
him fucking jawing with Chris Paul like 4 different times was awesome. But like it brought back memories.
Yeah. Chris Paul said he loves playing with him. Said he's a delight to play with.
Yeah, well, I meant in a. It certainly, I imagine that happens all the time, and Chris Paul respects and likes Dario.
Yeah.
Dario busts his ass. Dario is going to be a Sixer forever. I don't care what anybody says. That not every person who played here is always going to be one of ours, but Dario is one of ours, and I'll always cheer for that dude.
But I think the Sixers are better. I think they're at the height of their Sixers, especially with Ben. Ben's playing really well lately. I think that his offensive game has opened up. I think as far as he's got that weirdly long sky hook that's sort of starting to go in. It's not really a get fouled shot, but I'll take any 3 to 10 foot shot that he feels comfortable taking. His little like push shot floater type thing is starting to go in more. He's facing up in the post and using his quickness. He got by Covington a couple times for dunks. He got by. He had Etuan Moore on him in the post, and he got fouled easily. Those kinds of things are really important because for a while, teams were putting like a fucking a Frank Kaminsky or a Kelly Olynyk or like a Carmelo, like a slower 4 on him. And sometimes they're like, okay, well, let's put a quicker guard on him because he can't score on him in the post. And for him to be able to be like, I'm going to face up on you and I'm going to get to where my spot is and at least I'm going to get fouled. That's nice to see. That is like, we were talking about wanting developments in his game. And this is, for me, the first time I'm seeing this a lot. I think he did it more as a rookie, but now he's doing it more physically and more about getting to the rim and getting to the line.
There was a rumor this week. Was it Sam Amick? I forget who it was. Said that process enemy Nemanja Bjelica, who we've talked about numerous times throughout the year, who spurned the Sixers, lied, said he wanted to go back to his home country and then signed with the Kings, has fallen out of the rotation completely in Sacramento, is shooting 23% from 3, and he is 32.
But in like very few opportunities.
Kind of weird, though, that he's not playing, right?
Sure. He's only taken 24 threes. He's played 11 games. He's out of the rotation for sure.
I think I would aim higher, to be honest with you, than Nemanja Bjelica. Like, because he can't guard anybody. I would rather save up and spend for somebody that we can actually play in the playoffs as a 5 for 8 minutes. And I just think we'll get blown off the floor with Nemanja Bjelica in the playoffs. I think he's a better defensive player than Mike Scott. And I think certainly more capable of the occasional stretch 5 than Mike is in the right matchup. I think Bjelica is your classic like Nick Batum European on a team that he doesn't really give a fuck about and is going to maybe he's like Boris Diawing, like I don't know if he's smoking on the bench basically, but I think that there's a gear he will get back to when he's traded out of Sacramento, and it would be so funny if we got him. It'd be so funny if we got him. Like the absolute enemy of the process, random ass Bjelica just coming out of nowhere to be totally like public enemy number 1 for deciding for lying about where he wanted to go, which I respect. But yeah, I think it'd be great. I think he'd be great here. I think he'd be helpful alongside Ben and Joel in spurts, and also helpful more for the bench. He can play a little point, like just distributing from the top of from the post a little bit from the top of the arc, and like kind of let Shake or Korkmaz like run off screens and stuff. There's value there. I don't disagree that like it'd be nicer to have better players. I just think like as far as what the Sixers can offer and how much they want to hold on to some of their assets for a bigger future move, and how little I think this team, as is, in lieu of a big, huge Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal trade, is actually like capable of upgrading. I think it is these kinds of moves on the fringes. I would like this. I would like a Bjelica move. fuck that guy. I don't want him.
Yeah. But, well, look, if he does well, it's we negged him into being like successful. And if he does poorly, then we can, he's a mole and he never wanted to be here and we hate him. Like there's value in either direction.
I just fucking stuck a very sharp piece of metal into my finger, and that really fucking hurt.
Wow.
Holy shit. Yeah. Mike, here on Valentine's Day, many times I'll mention how much I love my dog and where he sits in my priority list, and many people will either tweet or email me and say, how does your wife feel about that when you mention your dog? It sounds like you favor him over every other living thing. Do I make it sound that way?
You do.
Yeah. Well, here's what I would say. I would say that if you were to ask my wife, she would probably prioritize things the exact same way. So she would never call me on it. Look, if you love your dog, like I love my dog, there's no other choice but Big Barker therapeutic dog beds. Most people don't think much about a dog bed. They go to the pet store, they see one, it looks fluffy, looks soft, it's $39.99, they buy it, they have their dog sleep in it. The problem with those things is that they're not actually beds. How would you feel every morning if you slept in something like that? It'd feel like shit. It would feel nice laying on it, but then you would wake up, your joints would be creaky. That's why Big Barker was invented. Eric, who started Big Barker, had a big giant dog, Hank, and he was like, Hank's got to get a real bed. So got a bunch of experts. They engineered this real bed. That's what the Big Barker is. BigBarker.com/Ricky. Make your dog an official process pup. Have him sleep on a real bed. If you go to BigBarker.com/Ricky, you get the Big Barker dog bed. You get 2 process pup patches so your dog can be official. Then you send us the email with the photo in it. We put them in the gallery, and all this stuff about it being better for your dog's joints, about it improving quality of life and improving joint function and improving their health and happiness as they get older. Not just us making stuff up, really proven by Penn Vet. They did a study and it literally changes the life of your pet. Now, it's like a couple $100. You're like, should I be spending that much on a dog bed? Yes, it's an investment. You're going to have this thing for years and years and years and years. That piece of shit you get at the pet store, you're going to need to replace in 2 years. This thing has a 10-year warranty. The foam doesn't flatten, or they replace it for free. 1 year at-home trial. If you don't like it, if your dog doesn't like it, fine, whatever. They will give you a full refund and pay for the shipping. Handmade. Not handmade, but made in the USA. Big Barker dog beds.
That was a very convincing ad, and I will end it with a woof.
Thank you. I saw you nodding your head during it.
I was really taking it in that time.
I was just playing with like this little piece of like I don't
metal.
know if you can see it. It's just like a thing, like a twist tie thing, and the metal came out of the fucking end. Wow, that really hurt. Anyway, before we get to relationship advice, it's brought to you by Kinetic Skateboarding. I want to shame some of our listeners here. Now, I thank Kinetic Skateboarding. We sold all of the Only Rockets podcast T-shirts yesterday. We sold them at Kinetic, $10 each. All went to the American Transplant Foundation in honor of a very close member of the Kinetic family, James Williams, who passed away in 2019, was only 28, did have a heart transplant, like one of their favorite guys ever. So thank you, Kinetic, for selling them $10. All that money will go there. We said $10, but buy something else from Kinetic too. And we couldn't do it on the website to make people do it. And most of the people that bought the Only Rockets podcast shirts did not buy anything else from Kinetic. I'm shaming you into going back and buying something. I bought one of the fucking T-shirts. I bought one, and I bought 2 other hoodies. So now, do you have to buy 2 hoodies? No. But could you buy a winter hat? Absolutely. Pair of socks? Sure. T-shirt? Definitely. So go to kineticskateboarding.com and use promo code DaveSilver for 9.1% off your first order. Okay, relationship advice.
I keep my heart under my pillow with my teeth and other lies. I've been waiting on your halo just to shine the light.
The song is from Eliza Hardy-Jones, which we got I forget whether it was an email or a YouTube comment. I think it was a YouTube comment that the song sounds way better at 1.5 speed. Now, I don't approve listening to our podcast at 1.5 speed, but I've never listened to the song at 1.5. Anyway, this comes from Reed. Now, Reed, Mike, for context, the email was really, really long. He's basically looking for a job, just graduated from school, but living at home with his parents, with his fiance as she finishes school, and he looks for a job. It's been a long time. And he says, to summarize, I'm a 24-year-old male with a degree in sports management, my MBA, with little experience and a pandemic that will never seem to end, and not sure where to begin. This is all currently taking a toll on my parents, who have been great to me, and wanted to see if your creative minds could help me in either facets of the relationship with my parents and or the job search and career. Congrats on Mike on the new show with The Rock, and Spike on the #1 major market sports radio program director. As always, thanks for the entertaining podcast and the interesting takes that never get old. P.S. With this long book that may not be worth your time, I will nominate myself for any upcoming episodes for the By Nature Pet Food Soft Shit Award. So basically, he's looking, I don't have any job advice. Maybe I'll email that to him. He's looking for a way to repair the relationship with his parents, as they have had enough of him being in the house.
I've had enough of me being in the house. I'm tired of myself all the time.
Anything for the parents? I mean, I would assume, maybe I shouldn't assume. I would assume you were doing all you can to help with stuff around the house, go grocery shopping for them, fucking shovel the walkway, stay out of their shit, give them their own time. Right? I mean, you would assume he's doing that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just try to take walks, go for a drive, get out of there, mix it up. It is it's been a long time, and I was thinking yesterday of how few people in the world I would be able to spend this much time in a small place other than Alyssa. And there's not many.
Right.
And so I can't imagine, if you're not in a good situation, or if your parents are like, get this fucking kid out of here, which I respect. I totally respect that from parents. If you're just like, get out of here. I don't know. I'd say just try to go on some like excursions, maybe by yourself. Check out if there's any hikes or nature-y something.
Yeah.
Something?
I mean, from what I understand, obviously I'm not in that situation specifically, but from what I can gather, the people I know who have had kids finally move out of the house, they love you, but they're so glad that you're gone. And this is almost like a second prime for them. Like, they've had 20 years or maybe 30 years of putting up with your shit, buying all your shit, cleaning up after your shit, and then you're gone. And they can just be like almost grandparents' parents that just every time they see you, it's fun, little gift, hugs, and then they move on. And then all of a sudden, you're there every fucking day again. And you're not even a charming kid. You're fucking 24 years old. So I agree with you, Mike. Get out of their shit. Just stay out of their way a little bit. And whatever chores they need to do. And as far as job advice, a very short piece of job advice that somebody did with me this week, somebody reached out to me. The best time to reach out to places that you want to work and people you want to work for is when they're not hiring, is sending them a note and saying, hey, I've always respected, admired what you do over there. I would love to get 20 minutes of your time just to talk about how you got where you are. And that is the best way to get on their radar. Because when there's a job application, there's 7 million of you, thanks to the internet, all applying online. And there's just no time to really, really sort through all that. So I would recommend reaching out when those places that you want to work for are not looking for jobs. The not easy to stomach YouTube comment of the week. Of course, we take a comment from YouTube every pod and go over it. This comes from John Cardizzi. What are your thoughts on Steve Nash saying Kyrie Irving was more skilled than Allen Iverson? Your thoughts, Mike, as the biggest Kyrie Irving fan on the pod?
I mean, I disagree. It's certainly a very different era. If you put Allen in this era, he's a better 3-point shooter. Mm-hmm. He has better help around him. All the stuff. Yeah, I disagree. I don't think either of them. I've always said is like person you want to build a team around. Primarily, if you're trying to win a championship, right. One is more fun to build a team around in Iverson. But I don't think either of them were ever, maybe in a world where Iverson is, I guess there's a world where Iverson is basically like some combination of like Dame and John Wall if he was playing now, and they'd have guys around him to better fit. But I still think that team's probably not, aside from the one championship appearance, I still think that team's probably not good enough.
Well, the question is, because Dame and John Wall have already played with fantastic offensive players who have thrived with them on the court. And I guess you could say that when he went to Denver, that was the time when he had Melo. That was the time when that happened. I wonder if there was a player earlier in his career where that would have happened. And to be fair to Steve Nash, when you look at the entire quote, he was super careful in that quote by saying that they were very different at very different times. And they play differently in that Kyrie is more crafty and Iverson was faster and more explosive. I think it's hard to say, especially given the eras, who is more skilled. I certainly don't think it would be hard to say that anybody was more skilled than Allen Iverson was, to be honest with you. So, the mailbag, writes Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Send us one basketball, one non-basketball player. Spike and Mike, we're going to get MVP questions throughout the year, which I love that we have a real MVP beef. From Richard, why does it seem like when the national center debate is brought up, the media always seems to lean Jokic? I get it, he's a very good player and is at least top 3, but sometimes the media makes it seem like he is in a different tier than Embiid, but they never give a reason why. It reminds me of when someone who likes a real niche or indie band being like, you wouldn't get it when you ask why they like them. My theory is that he's out of shape, goofy looking, and doesn't play defense like the local guy at the YMCA, so they all see themselves in him and subsequently want him to succeed. If Embiid doesn't win MVP and Jokic did, I think the smugness from the media would reach never-before-seen levels. Why do you think Jokic, or do you think that's even true, that Jokic seems to get the nod nationally?
I don't. I mean, I think the media is always a wide-ranging group of people. Mm-hmm. It's not one. I'm sure maybe there's people on Inside the NBA or whatever, those kinds of panel shows that do this, but I would say Embiid is right there in the conversation with LeBron and Jokic, and I think Steph has probably made his way into the conversation as well about how people talk about it. I think Jokic just does more offensively. He is also the fulcrum of the offense as a passer. And so for him to score as much as he does and also get 9-10 assists a game, that is, I think, shocking and new from a center, and that Embiid is more of a traditional here's what he does as a center. He obviously does impressive stuff. I don't think Jokic doesn't play defense. He's certainly not even a fraction of the defensive player Embiid is, but I don't think he's a total zero back there. So yeah, I think that if you look, I think it is the combination of media generally, people generally not valuing defense as much, and the passing numbers and visually impressivery making a difference for Jokic. Also, I do think that part of it, of him being slow and lumbery, is just fun and surprising every time you watch him. So yeah, I think that plays a role for sure. But I do think Embiid, because the team is better, because he carries more weight on the defensive end and anchors the team, I think he deserves it by a lot more. But the YMCA the YMCA bump of sports writers everywhere. You can't. That is always a factor you got to watch out for. No one's seeing Embiid at a YMCA.
Yeah, I agree with Richard. I think it's a little bit of both of what you said. I think it is the differentness of a player like Jokic, who is sort of like if we had gotten Arvydas Sabonis in his prime, sort of what that would have looked like. And wow, look at the doughy white guy scoring 30 points a game happens kind of often in the NBA. But I just don't think that position can be like, if you're going to win a championship, that position has to be a really good defender. Like Embiid is way better on offense than Jokic is on defense, to simplify it. And if I were to
this
build
year, yes, I would say previous years, maybe not.
But he's better on offense than Jokic was on defense, though.
I think last year, probably, but yeah, okay, I could say that. I think it's closer. I think it was closer last year than it is this year.
I agree with that. I would take Adebayo over Jokic if I wanted to win a championship. Like if you want to, like, Jokic is sort of like the Russell Westbrook of centers. If you want to put up triple doubles and wax poetic all year long about how great they are, and then eventually not win a championship, then Jokic is your guy. So
yeah, I mean, I think they've had some postseason success, and I think that because there's too many bad defenders on Denver. Obviously, right. Michael Porter Jr. comes to mind. Jamal Murray, not a great defender. Paul Millsap maybe doesn't exist, but also is quite old. And without Jeremy Grant, that's a big loss for them on the defensive end. And so I think there's a world. I think Jokic might be, like, obviously Westbrook is a fine. It's the right comparison that he's center Westbrook, but I do think he also is so effective and efficient and good at different things that he might be like good enough to be the exception.
Yeah.
As like you have to have a defensive center to win a championship. He might just be so good that he can be the exception that proves the rule. I just think they need to do a better job of surrounding him with better defensive players and less Michael Porter Jr.'s.
And non-basketball question, do you guys have a pick recommendation for Best Picture in a year where movies didn't really come out? Now, there were a lot of movies that came out, so there weren't many theaters. Did you have a favorite movie from 2020?
I still have so many movies to watch. I get these screeners, which is very nice in the WGA, and they're just sitting here. I have not watched most of them. Let's see. There were movies I liked. What am I looking at? Wait 1 second.
Well, I'll mention I really liked. I have a very specific kind of movie, but one of them is I like dystopian space movies. And if you haven't seen Sputnik was really good. What do you have?
I liked Palm Springs. People talked about that already. There's a doc on Apple called Boys State that I actually really liked a lot. That was more inspiring and fun and also depressing than it was. I thought it was gonna be full depressing, and it was a little bit. It was a lot of fun. And there was a movie that you probably wouldn't get or understand or would feel was boring if you don't work in the entertainment industry. But there's a movie called The Assistant.
It's a good movie.
That's like really like harrowing and like subtle and tough to watch in a strange way, but a
lot of dread kind of in that movie. A lot of dread,
yeah.
Yeah, that is and there were, I would say there's, I know, Mike, you're not a big horror movie fan, but if you're, who asked this, if you're a horror movie fan, there were a lot of good ones in 2020, a lot of like weird sort of very strange horror movies. So if you like that, send me a note and I'll send you a list. And everyone should see The Social Dilemma if you haven't. From Joe, speaking of MVP, why do people seem to miss? I thought this was an interesting email, and you've mentioned this in not so many words, but why do people seem to miss the point of the MVP award? It's not awarded to Embiid for being the most valuable Sixer, and it's not awarded to LeBron for being the most important player on the team with the best record. It's actually awarded to the player most valuable to the NBA that season. This actually explains statistical outliers like Iverson, Westbrook, and Rose while making sense of the Giannis, Durant, and Curry selections. Iverson was the league's most valuable player because he electrified audiences, changed the style and face of the league, and influenced a generation of young players, all while scoring a ton. Westbrook was valuable to a league growing wary of super teams because he stayed in a small market and then racked up empty-calorie triple-doubles. Giannis makes more sense with advanced stats, but his value is a combination of fan interest, internalization, and as an Eastern Conference foil against the dominant West. So with that criteria in mind, who is the NBA's MVP this season?
I mean, I don't know that I agree with that assessment of it. I do think that
Really?
I think that there's
It's an interesting assessment of it.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't think, I think everyone has, there's not like a, here's what the MVP is. Mm-hmm. I think that generally it is the most impactful player on the best team. And so I don't know, like, as far as like the culture, like, or like who's important to the league, if there was some player that was like pioneering some, like, I don't know, cure for cancer, would it make his MVP case like stronger? I don't know.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe that'd be cool. I'm just not sure. I think it generally will go to the most impactful player on one of the best 5-ish teams in the league. And I think right now that's Embiid.
I'm trying to think, who would it be this year? If by going by Joe's rule, who would it be?
You could say like Embiid bringing back, in a league that's so
centers,
so far gone away from post play. Embiid being not only incredibly effective at that and at a high volume is impressive. So as far as like the league's trending in the 3-point direction, and so many guys ripping off shots quickly and moving fast, and the Sixers are the first seed in the East for now with a inside out offense.
I'm trying to think what player is driving conversation in the NBA more than anybody else. And this is where we have to wait, because at this point, the answer is probably like James Harden or Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I don't think that seems like so.
It just doesn't seem like they're going to win.
Yeah, the people that the media talks about on these shows then becomes the MVP. I mean, then, Brian Colangelo should have been the MVP a couple of years ago.
Maybe.
Great.
Non-basketball question. Which 3 North American cities would you relocate to if you could only choose from cities you've never visited? Based solely on your perception, no firsthand knowledge, which 3 cities would you choose?
I've been to most.
I've been to a lot of cities. But you have to pick 3 that you haven't. I know 2 of them. I think I would pick Woodstock, Vermont, because I've for some reason romanticized it in my head.
Is that a city? Are we
What's that?
like
Yeah.
Straight up cities?
Well, I mean, it's a city, I guess. I would pick Austin, Texas. I've never been. I've been to Seattle, been to Portland, been to Chicago, obviously. Is there another one? Never been to Salt Lake City. I'll take that one.
Yeah, I've been to those places. I might say like a Bozeman, Montana.
Sounds
That
exciting.
could be cool.
Yep. I'd love to live in Montana.
I might say I've never been, but I've heard great things. Lawrence, Kansas. I've heard great things about. My buddy went to KU, and
Yep.
I think I've been led to believe it's more than just a college town. And I might say like a Louisville, Kentucky, which seems like a cool place. But I've been a lot of places. I've driven cross country a bunch, so you see a bunch of shit.
Yeah, I've been to I was disappointed in the number of places that I would pick that I've been to when I started thinking about it.
I might add Sacramento to that list.
Oh yeah, I've never been to Sacramento either. It sucks. Like I've spent maybe 36 total hours in Sacramento or in San Francisco or something. You know, like so many cities were knocked off just because I happened to be in them for a day or two. From Vincent, and final Embiid Jokic question. I thought it was an interesting way to wrap up this part of the discussion. Hypothetically speaking, if you were to put Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic in an eating contest similarly styled to the Nathan's hot dog eating contest on 4th of July in Coney Island, who would you choose to win and why? Keep in mind, both have gotten in much better shape and seem to have taken their conditioning more seriously. Who would have you have chosen to win a year ago? Love the pod. Keep up the great work.
I think probably Jokic. I think that there's I feel like there's a jaw to be unlocked there. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Embiid would just be like, I'm not doing it. No. I don't think Embiid would make himself that uncomfortable. And I feel like Jokic would just be disgusting.
Yeah, I think there's probably a little more gluttonous to Jokic. Here's one thing that I learned in my few years spent talking to competitive eating managers, which actually did happen, and competitive eaters, is that the best ones are not fat, out of shape. Like when you look at most of the best competitive eaters, they're actually in really good shape, and it takes a toll on your body to eat that much. And having a fast metabolism actually helps. But I just don't get Embiid as like Mr. Glutton guy. I just think he liked eating, whereas I could imagine, because even at his fattest, Embiid still looked like he was in shape, whereas Jokic does not. I would take Jokic in the eating competition. From AJ, non-basketball, when peeing at a regular toilet, not a urinal, where do you stand? My entire life, I stood roughly where the middle of my feet were, even with the front of the toilet bowl. A couple days ago, I moved up, placing me roughly midway over the bowl. You rarely see anyone on TV or movies pee in a regular toilet, and made me wonder why I stood where I did for so long. I'm happy with my switch, and I'm interested in hearing what you guys think.
I'm not standing directly over the bowl like I'm some sort of like straddling the bowl like I'm like an alien ship like hovering over something to like abduct the toilet into my crotch.
Yeah.
I used to as a kid. I stand I think regular. I used to stand on the side because I had this weird fear that someone's going to come up behind me as I was peeing and scare me or shove me into the toilet or something. So
we did that in high school. Guys would like kick the back of your knee if you're at a urinal.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even talking in high school, like in my own house. So like, I don't know. I don't know why I thought that my parents or my siblings were going to just like fuck with me or something. I don't think it ever happened, but there was some irrational fear that I had of like, I'm going to have eyes on the door at all times in case.
Oh my God, that is wonderful. You're like the guy that never sits with his back to the
That's
door
right.
in a restaurant, but
Yeah,
in a
restaurant by myself
house.
while also I'm naked.
Oh my God, that is great. Is this going to be the last one? Yeah, this is the last one. We got so many. I would like to thank the emailers of the Ricky who have been fantastic this season, absolutely fantastic. This comes from Ian. Hey guys, this is my first time emailing, but watching my 1-year-old try to scale his bookshelf the other day makes me wonder which current Sixer would be the best babysitter. Probably Maxey or Thibault because they've got that childlike energy to get on a kid's level. But then I thought maybe Mike Scott. There's something to be said for a babysitter who will teach you how to fight or take you to get your first neck tat. Just crossed my mind, so I figured I would ask. By
Mike
the way,
would be a good babysitter.
Go ahead.
I think he would. I think Mike would be good.
Yeah.
I think Shake would probably suck. It doesn't seem like Shake would know what to do. Seth feels like a grown up in that way. I think that, I mean, I feel like I have a healthy trust of like Embiid, obviously as a kid now, I would trust him. Tobias, solid guy. Come on. Matisse is definitely going to star in some movie, like where you can see the poster is him like with a baby in one hand and like two phones for some reason and like a bowl of mac and cheese and like a pizza on his foot. Like he's trying to like juggle all of it for some reason. He's
like
definitely gonna,
Adventures in Babysitting, starring reboot with Matisse style. Yeah.
And Korkmaz is the wacky friend. So yeah, I think Mike Scott might be the answer. I think Seth Embiid or Tobias would be suitable as well.
So
I have a couple more things to say about those games. I want to comment on a couple nice things.
Okay.
So I was not happy with these two games, specifically the Phoenix game, but there's a couple nice things. I want to say that I thought Tobias has been passing better.
Wait. I want to say one thing, and then we'll get to the games. One thing. I just want to note that last time we were asked who the Sixers are most likely to have cryptocurrency was, and we said Tobias, and within 24 hours.
Yeah, hours, yeah.
Tobias was interacting with a CJ McCollum tweet about Bitcoin. So we're right. Okay, back to the games.
On point there. Tobias, I think he has passed well. He's thrown a couple of nice lobs some to Dwight, some to Joel, and Ben as well. I thought he's been just driving and kicking well. I thought that is an element of his game, in addition to the shooting more quickly thing that I had been harping on, and I wanted to comment that Tobias has, I think, been passing better. And creating for himself well off the dribble, as kind of he always has. I want to give credit for Korkmaz's pump fake. I just want to make sure we're not taking it for granted.
Right.
It gets people up all the time, just all the time. It is a ludicrous thing, and it's beautiful, and I'm happy for him. The Embiid, he's done this a couple times. Embiid has, in the post, done a couple spins into dunks. This time he did it on Dario.
Yeah,
and I think that is a good indication of his fitness and conditioning level, in that he's been able to get to his spots in the post before, but kind of just like rolls it up, lays it in, gets fouled, whatever. But having the ability to make the second move and finish with a dunk, I think is indicative of how in shape he is. And it's always a really nice momentum swing and just a good get some aggression out type of thing. And I think Embiid has passed well a little bit. He still does those weird, like, pass at somebody's ankles, get it out of there type of thing. But I think he had that nice little give and go to Ben late in the Portland game. He had a good backdoor look to Tobias in the Phoenix game. I think that's just like he wants to be a really good passer. I can see it. Like, I can see him want to be a good passer. And so when he has to make a tough pass, I think he's really concentrating on it and focuses on it, and he can do it. But sometimes he's forcing it, and sometimes he's just got to make the easy pass. And then Ben's ridiculous pin block off the Anthony Simons alley-oop that he then got the ball for and found Matisse for a transition three. Like, that's just a ridiculous play. You just don't see defensive players that are, you don't see passers that are also that fast and athletic. And so for him to be able to come back, make that play, ridiculous defensive play, and also then make a tough pass to Matisse in transition, he's really very good. And I think a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year, like, just based on how well he's playing. I don't think he's as impactful as a defender as Joel. Absolutely not. I just don't think that there really is one as far as a defensive anchor for a five. But his versatility and some of the plays he's made and getting up in people's grills and stuff, is really very impressive. He did it to Dame, it's at the end of the game, he's like trapping Dame at half court, like, by himself. It's unbelievable. So those are some nice plays. And Danny had a nice backdoor again that I'm always impressed by, and I am shocked when dribbling works for him.
Yeah,
just shocked when he dribbles into anything when it happens. Like, it is a real surprise for me.
The Danny dunk was incredible. Seeing Danny Green dunk, yeah, it was great. Even with all the shit in his underwear, still able to do it.
Yeah.
CJ, CJ, video producer, I want you to, while we're talking badly about the Sixers in the first half, put up a thing on the screen that says, for some really positive notes from Mike, stay tuned to the 65th minute of the pod.
Also, friggin' Doc used a challenge last night, but use it more. Like, you don't get to save him.
You should have used it against Portland.
Should have used it against Portland. Like, I think Doc's doing a great job, but his real reluctance to use a challenge is on a Tobias unwilling shooter level of hesitation. And I gotta rip through that, man. Any points at the beginning of the game and points at the end of the game, they count for the same. I need if you are right, then you have to use it. Just use it. Those points count. I will take them.
What if he has? I have a fundamental problem with the existence of instant replay. What if that's his issue?
Sure. I think the horse is out of the barn there, and now you're just impacting yourself.
Well, I always appreciate anyone who has a moral.
Sure.
Sticks up for something morally. All right, we will talk to you Wednesday night after the Rockets game. Of course, a huge game against the Jazz.
Got to be the Jazz. Got to be the Jazz. Got to watch Young Rock. Got to DVR Young Rock and watch it on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock on NBC. And it's on every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. It's going to be great.
Congratulations on Young Rock, Mike. The Sixers, congratulations on their win in Utah. We'll talk to you Wednesday.
Gotta win.
Gotta get it. Are you down with TPP?
Yeah, lick face.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Time for plan B.